Imagine yourself at work or at school, or if you aren't working right now, imagine yourself at one of your most common tasks, something you do every day. Paul is in his office hours and no students are coming. Mary is helping a child receive an echocardiogram. Michael is working through a huge pile of papers. Comfort is teaching her students. Christy is talking with a mother at the clinic. Can you see yourself? And now a person comes in and says to you, "Follow me. Put down your pencil, take off your lanyard, and follow me." What would we think? Would we go? I doubt it. When I read this story of Jesus calling his first disciples, two pairs of brothers, Simon Peter and Andrew and James and John, out along the seashore fishing and mending their nets, I wonder what it was about Jesus that caused them to say yes to him immediately and without hesitation. When they woke up that morning, they were heading out to fish in their boats, and they planned to do that the next day and the day after. They weren't on a religious quest. They weren't in the temple praying. They weren't looking for God. And yet Matthew tells us immediately they left their nets and followed him. Have you ever wondered what Jesus was like? If you met him in person, what would he be like? What would you see? What would you feel? This morning, I simply want to talk about some of the qualities we see in Jesus through the stories of the Gospels, so that we might better imagine what those followers saw, what drew them to him, what compelled them to go with him and join in his work. We won't capture it all. Surely that's not possible. But maybe we can begin to picture this extraordinary one and remind ourselves of why we too have come on this journey. Jesus was compassionate. The Gospels tell us that when he saw the people, he felt compassion for them. His teachings bless the hurting and offer comfort and encouragement not to worry. His ministry, we sometimes forget, was filled with healing the sick, teaching and healing. We also have the story of the disciples shooing the children away, and Jesus instead pulling them to him and blessing them. He was compassionate, but his compassion didn't stop him from speaking boldly. He was both gentle and fierce. He was both patient and impatient. Jesus calls the religious leaders of his day hypocrites. He warned against false prophets and the easy road. He flipped over those tables in the temple when the poor were being fleeced. Jesus was filled with a power that astounded people. He spoke about what God wanted with authority, as though he knew exactly what God wanted, even though he had no earthly authority. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't a priest. He stood up to fierce criticism and heckling, and he even faced off against the wind and the waves. When they saw it, his disciples asked, "What sort of a man is this?" And his power came with wisdom to understand the scriptures and to navigate legalistic traps, wisdom that came through in his teaching and through those stories he told as parables. In spite of walking around with that serious power, Jesus was also accused of being too lax. He was accused of having too much fun. He was accused of being too loose. People compared him to John the Baptist, who was an ascetic, who fasted and followed a strict diet. Jesus wasn't like that. So many stories picture him at the dinner table. So many stories have to do with food and drink. He didn't worry about the rules of hand washing. He accepted people for who they were: Samaritans, prostitutes, tax collectors. Yet even though he gave that great leeway in some areas, Jesus also demanded a lot. We still wrestle with those passages that call us to give to everyone who begs, right? Who can live up to that? Or go the second mile to love our enemy, to forgive those who harm us. When it came to ritual and niceties of religion, Jesus was easygoing, and he warned us against burdening folks with unbearable rules. And yet, when the question at hand was love or integrity of heart, he set a high bar. I heard a story on the news recently about pole vaulters in India who found themselves in a conundrum trying to get to a tournament. When they tried to board a train, they were told their baggage was oversized, their baggage being their poles. Have you ever wondered how a pole vaulter travels? I never thought about it before. Those poles don't come apart. They're one piece. When it came to radical love, Jesus asked us to be pole vaulters. Though I suspect that he himself is the run and the pull and the lifting into the air, and that he is also the mat that catches us when we land. Like the prayer of Reinhold Niebuhr that asks God to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable, I think if we met Jesus face to face, we would have walked away feeling both transcendently loved just as we are, and also the urgent desire to be better people. Like Zacchaeus, who after Jesus shocked everyone by going to dinner at his house, decided to give away half of all he owned. Jesus was a prayerful person. Before he began his ministry, after a barrage of crowds, when faced with sorrow, he sought time away from everyone to pray. Jesus didn't multitask. And he certainly wasn't an administrator, say a prayer for those of us who are. God bless us. Jesus didn't even live in a home. He took each day as it came, walking through the world, addressing the people who came to him, trusting that a kind someone would provide shelter and food. Jesus didn't rush. We do get a feeling from him in the Gospels of purposefulness and focus, urgency and necessity to bring God's kingdom into being, but he didn't rush. Jesus loved his friends. He was relational and social. The Gospel of John especially emphasizes those loving relationships with Lazarus and Mary and Martha and the disciples. Jesus touched people. He used his hands. He touched everyone and he shunned no one. And he felt a union with God, saying, I and the Father are one. His connection with God brought God right into the room for those he met, brought God into reach. When people met him, they said their hearts burned within them. They said that he saw into their very soul. This Jesus, whom we can only imagine even with the stories we have, do you realize that in all the Gospels, we don't have one single description of what Jesus looked like. We don't know what he looked like. This Jesus, whom we can only imagine, has also caused our hearts to burn within us. His life laid out stones on a path that we have chosen to walk behind him. Earlier, I asked how we would feel if Jesus came to us in our classrooms or our offices, but in another sense, he has come to us like that. He has come to each of us in some way or form and urged us to set down one thing and take up his work instead. That's probably why many of you do the work you do or spend your precious time the way you do, because you have felt called to it as a part of God's larger work, as a part of God's action in the world. Jesus has come to you and asked you to follow, and I am thankful. Thankful for the moments on the map of your life that can be marked by the times you said yes. The times you chose that courageous path, the loving path, the path of other concern that probably cost you something. The times you chose the joyful and free path and set down what you didn't need to carry anymore. I am thankful for all those times. Let us be glad today, for we are on that narrow, joyful, God-strewn, love-hewn path together. We are following those markers that Jesus left for us, following the blazes on the trail and following the blazing in our hearts. Amen.